Hi, I'm Ben, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing part 2 of my 2000 subscribers Q&A, which was originally intended to be one long video, but then it got so long that I called time about halfway through what I thought was going to be the full runtime. Turns out part 2 is actually way longer than part 1, so I hope you're interested in some answers to even more of those juicy questions. We're going to join the questions I think midway through the section about books, which is an obvious topic. Most of the questions were about books, but there are also sections on characters and authors, on Booktube and my experience, my setup, my process, as well as some fun stuff at the end. Thank you again for all the questions. I really enjoyed answering them, but I'll hand you over to me. Bye. Joanna Marquez asks, what books released in the last few years do you think will become classics in the future? This is a really cool question. I think an obvious one is probably Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. That feels like a ready-made classic. Some others that came to mind were The Overstory by Richard Powers. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadine Evaristo is a fantastic book that I think will be very fondly remembered. The Promise by Damon is an amazing book, and The Nickel Boys by Colson, Whitehead. However, after I thought of all of those, it did occur to me that all 5 of those books that I've listed have either won the Pulitzer or won the Booker Prize, and it's kind of uninteresting to me to predict books that are already highly critically successful will be highly critically regarded in the future. It's not a sure thing, but it feels like the odds are pretty good. So I was trying to think of something that was maybe a bit less well known that might emerge as a classic, and I thought of Gwendoline Riley's My Phantoms, which I think is pretty well regarded by those who have read it, but it just hasn't been read by that many people, and she's such a terrifically talented writer that I think all it would take is for her next book to become like a critical sensation and get nominated for the Booker or something, and her backlist would suddenly become very popular and people would wake up to Gwendoline Riley's talent. So I'd love to see that become a classic. Decan, which I apologise if that's not how to say it, but I tried. They asked, which books turned out to be more rewarding than you had expected? The one that comes to mind straight away is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Kesey. That was something that I would never really have read. I'd always thought of it, I guess, primarily as a film, but a colleague suggested reading that as a bit of a buddy read at work, pre-pandemic. And we read that together and it became one of my absolute favourite books. I think it's such a clever, inventive book. Really loved it. Chronicle V asks, what is my favourite book-to-screen adaptation? And that's got to be Arrival, which is directed by Denis Villeneuve, but it's based on Ted Chiang's short story called Story of Your Life. I think they're both fantastic pieces of art and I would highly recommend reading it. The story is the title story of Ted Chiang's collection called Story of Your Life and Others. Really, really great. Johnny asks, what is your favourite guilty pleasure novel/genre, and do you mind sharing some titles? From the 3 horny devil emojis that have been included, I expect that means you're after something a little bit sexy, and I hate to disappoint, but I haven't really read much smut. Although I did work in London for a bit before I moved to Bristol, and I remember reading a couple of pages of 50 Shades of Grey over the shoulder of some lady, because you are absolutely packed up like that on the tube in the morning. And I tell you what, I didn't like it. In general though, I don't feel guilty about what I read. I think life's too short to feel guilty. Maybe the closest would be kids' books, but there's no shame in reading kids' books. What would be a good title that I would recommend? Probably Terry Pratchett's Bromeliad trilogy, which is, no, it's not here. I don't know where it is, but I think the first one's called Truckers. Really good. Very, very funny. Lots for adults in there as well. But I'm afraid, Johnny, not sexy adult stuff. So if I've disappointed you, I can only apologise. Decan has got another question, which is, which books have you put the most time and effort into understanding? And to my shame, not that many. The objectively true answer would probably be Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, which I read and understood. I'd say not very much of, but I enjoyed it. I'm really interested in space and time, and I watch quite a lot of PBS Space Time, which is an awesome YouTube channel about, I guess, space time, obviously. Dr. Becky stuff is really cool as well. But yeah, I spent a lot of time trying to understand some of the concepts in there because it was really interesting to me. I do enjoy a bit of a clever fictional head scratcher though. So Susan Choi's Trust Exercise really made me think. Love and Other Thought Experiments by Sophie Ward is a favourite that really blew my mind. And then Blake Crouch's Recursion is also one that I spent a lot of time trying to like understand the mechanics of properly. I don't like it to be too obscure though. So again, not to rag on Study for Obedience, but it really wasn't my cup of tea. Oh, that's the end of the books section. Moving on then, we've got authors and characters. So these are questions, I guess, about authors and characters. Chronicle V asks, who is the most compelling fictional character you've ever read in a book? Some that come to mind are Richard Pappan from Secret History. I thought he was great, really enjoyable to read. Amy Dunn from Gone Girl. I won't say why, in case you're the one person left on the planet who hasn't read Gone Girl, but very, very, very enjoyable character to read. The protagonist from I'm a Fan was super, super compelling. And the character, again, another one that I can't really talk about too much without giving spoilers, but there is a character in Project Hail Mary that I was incredibly compelled by. Brit Liz asks, which book or character do you feel most connected to? My go-to answer for this is Franny Glass from Franny and Zoe, but I did read that when I was 21 and I just finished my finals, and I think I related a lot to her kind of existential crisis and like trying to pass the phoniness around her. That was very connected to being that age, I think. And so would I relate to it so much now if I reread that book? I'm not so sure. I guess now perhaps Theo from Bewilderment. Like, I don't really go through the same things that he does, but I have the same like worries about the world and points of view and curiosity. Or maybe the main character from Mayflies, which is a really great book about being like reminiscent of your teenage years and how your life has changed as you become an adult with more responsibilities. Amelia Reeds asks, is there a fictional character you see yourself in? I'd say probably the same answer as the last question, which is Franny Glass. I could really relate to her dismay about the phoniness and artifice around her, and it has probably weirdly informed my personality even up to today. I'm very much a fan of being authentic, even if that means being annoying. Yeah. Hojack Borsman is back with another question. If you could choose a fictional character to be your best friend, who would you choose? Similarly, who would be your nemesis? I think my bestie would be that character I've just mentioned from Project Hail Mary that I can't talk about. If you know, you know. Nemesis. Like, I could pick a literal serial killer like Hannibal Lecter or, I don't know, like Annie Wilkes from Misery. But I don't know if I want those evil people as my nemesis. Like, I'd like to defeat them, but I'd also like them not to kill me. I think like my skills in combat are much more intellectual than they are physical, so maybe I'd pick someone who I could fight in a more intellectual sense, like, I don't know, the Sacklers, and then we'd have like an epic legal battle. Yeah, let's go for that. The Sacklers, they're my nemesis now. Decan asks, which author's fictional universe would you most like to visit? And I've got to say, I would pick the world of the first 15 lives of Harry August, which is about Ouroboros, who are like special people who live their lives, and then when they die they're born again, but they remember everything from the first time around. And there's this really cool mechanic to the world where messages can be passed forwards and backwards in time. So I'd love to just get all those messages from the future. I want to know, like, do we survive the climate crisis, or do we ever meet aliens? Okay, final two questions in this section I'm going to answer together. They're both from Charlie Brooke, and they are, which author would you most like to have dinner with and why? And which author would you like to meet? I think the answers to those questions are basically the same. So I would really love to meet two authors, because I'm going to be greedy. One is Richard Powers and the other is Ted Chiang. And the reason I want to meet those authors is because I just think both of them are really interesting, deep thinkers. They've got a lot of interesting perspectives about the world, and I just want to like scoop some of their brains out. No, I wouldn't want to scoop their brains out. I'd want to just ask them questions and hear what they thought about different things, about the world, about writing, about the times that we live in. I've listened to podcasts where they've been interviewed and they're just always super, super interesting discussions. In fact, I don't even need to be talking very much. I just want to sit back and listen to them talk to each other, ideally over a Nando's. Next category is questions all about Booktube. So there were quite a few asking me about my Booktube journey, but also looking for a bit of advice and thoughts about stuff. So grouped all these together. The first one of the questions in this section is from Faye's Parallel Stories. She's got a great channel that I'll link below, but she's asked about my Booktube highlights so far. And a really early highlight for me was when I got a comment and a shout out from Simon Savage quite early on in my Booktube journey, which sounds a little bit fanboyish, but I think why it was exciting for me was that I watched Simon for many years, and when I started my channel, like, I was partly inspired by what he was doing and interested in, I guess, cultivating the similar sort of community, but I never in a million years expected that someone like that would see what I was producing, and for that to happen quite early on when I didn't have many followers, and for Simon to do what he does for a lot of Booktubers, actually, to like champion these really smaller channels and take an interest in the community. I thought it was just a really, really nice thing, and it got me really excited. Similarly, when my first video took off, and I don't want to say went viral because it definitely did not go viral, but in terms of like the YouTube algorithm, it started being promoted to quite a few users. But my best books of the year for last year took off just after Christmas, and I remember being so excited and just thinking, what the hell is going on? And it was a real adrenaline hit and really exciting, and I loved that experience. It was a real buzz. Another highlight was probably the first time that a publisher sent me a book. Again, it's a thing that I just hadn't really thought about or imagined ever happening, but the lovely folks at Indigo Press sent me a copy of an upcoming book called Between Dog and Wolf. That was just like so exciting to receive. I absolutely loved that experience. And then just more generally, like meeting people in this community, talking to you all in the comments after every video, hearing what you have to say about the things that I'm sharing. It's all just been really lovely, and I've absolutely had a blast so far. I can't believe it's not yet been a year. It feels like I've been doing this for ages now. But yeah, I'm so grateful to all of you for all the support and your continued watching of the stuff that I'm creating. So you guys, that's my highlight. Okay, Chronicle V has asked, do I have any future goals or ideas for the channel now that I've reached 1,000 subscribers? At the time this question was asked, I think my goal would have been to reach 4,000 hours total watch time. So if you are not someone who runs a YouTube channel, the reason for that is that in order to monetize your channel, you have to have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours of watch time. And the thing is, I'm not trying to do that because I expect to make lots of money from YouTube. I'm not really doing it for that reason. That's not my driver in all of this. But YouTube will put adverts on your videos either way, so it makes sense as a creator to get a cut of that. And I guess what I'd like to do with the money that I earn from this channel, and let me tell you, I've been monetized for a little while now, and it's not very much, at least not for a channel of this size, but I'd like to use that money in order to upgrade my equipment or like create a better workflow for myself so that I can produce content a little bit more efficiently and to a higher standard. But anyway, I reached that goal. I got to 2,000 subscribers. When I was looking at these questions, when it was going to be a 2K Q&A, I was thinking, oh, it'd be nice to get to 2,500 subscribers by the end of my first year on YouTube. And again, I've like reached that goal quite quickly. So yeah, I'm not sure. It's difficult. I guess I've got some like non-metrics based goals, which would be things like I'd like my videos to show a little bit more of my personality. I think in my day-to-day life, I say this without like ego, but I think I make a lot more jokes and I think I'm a bit funnier, and I find it hard to bring that to a camera like when I'm just talking to myself. So I'd like to figure out a way to bring that like humour and warmth a little bit more. And I suppose I'd like to wean myself off of looking at the analytics so much. I do get a little bit glued to it, and I'm opening the YouTube Studio app quite a lot, and I am quite like metrics driven. So I want to divorce myself from that a little bit if I can. I would love to hear what you out there would like to see from the channel, though. That would really help me figure out like what my plan for the future is. So if you've got any ideas or anything you want to see more of or less of, stuff you like about the channel, stuff you've seen other creators do that you'd really like to see me try out as well, then yeah, let me know. Next is a question from Anthony at Trailing the Pages. So he says, as someone who's interested in creating a Booktube channel themselves, I'm curious what some of your biggest struggles have been. What ultimately made you take the leap of faith? I think the biggest struggle for sure is like my self-consciousness and putting myself out there. I think when you put yourself out there, you put yourself up to scrutiny and criticism, and I find that quite scary. I'm not a person who historically has had much of an online presence at all. Like, I don't have a Facebook. I deactivated it a couple of years ago. I've never really had a Twitter other than when I've been like forced to just to read something, and my personal Instagram is private, although I've recently created one for this channel. So I'm not a very like online person, and the idea of being out there kind of scares me, and that sometimes takes a knock. I mean, I've talked about the highs of Booktube so far, but one of the lows was when I put out my video about books to read in Pride Month, and I think that video was initially titled like Gay Books for Pride Month, and that video got way more dislikes and way more unsubscribes than I had received on anything before then, and actually anything since. And on the one hand, I'm like, do I want people who are homophobic to be following me or like watching and liking my videos? Absolutely not. Like, if you're homophobic, get out of here. What are you doing here in the first place? But at the same time, it's quite sobering to remember that there are people out there who disagree with your right just to exist as the person that you are. And that kind of sucks. I mean, I don't get negative harassing comments like I know some other YouTubers do, particularly people at the moment who are trans, and my heart goes out to them having to deal with that shit all the time. But it doesn't make it any less like personally affecting if and when it does happen. But anyway, that's like not really your question. I'll answer the second part of your question, which is about like what ultimately made me take the leap of faith. And interestingly, it was a video I watched from another booktuber called Sunny Kim, who I think kind of moves in different booktube circles. We read quite differently, but she's got this wonderful chaotic energy to her videos. I really enjoy watching them. They're really good fun. But she did a video I watched. I can't remember what the video was called, whether it was about starting a booktube in general, whether it was just part of another video. But I really vividly remember something clicking for me when she said, YouTube is a time game. And she was like, if you're thinking about starting a booktube channel, you're probably going to do it. And if you're going to do it, you might as well do it today, because today is the best time to do it. Let's say it takes you 3 months to get to 100 subscribers. If you start today, that's going to happen in 3 months' time. But if you start in 3 months' time, that's going to happen in 6 months' time. So you might as well start now. My advice would be just give it a go. Put yourself out there. You can always delete your channel later or make it all private if it's not something that's working out for you. But if you try it, and you find that you do get into that cadence and you get something out of it creatively or from the community, then it might be a really good decision. You'll only find out by giving it a go. Anthony also asked, did you have any resources or tutorials you could share for the video editing process and or behind the scenes of what equipment you use? I actually didn't want to spend too much money when I was starting out, so I really minimised the investment I made because I wasn't sure if it was going to continue or not. So I shoot everything on my phone. I've got like quite an inexpensive tripod that also doubles as a selfie stick and comes with like a little control so I can remotely stop and start recording. I've got a pretty cheap ring light. I did buy a really cheap microphone, and I would say you want to invest like a little bit more in a microphone, but I think this one was about £35. I will say this might be a very personal problem, but the ring light placement is a bit of a pain for me. My one is not one that's on a tripod, it's just on like tiny little legs. But because I've got glasses on, if I put the ring light at like at eye level, you just get the rings reflected. So I have this comically high stack of books which I put my ring light on top of. So I would think about that if you're a glasses wearer. I should probably get a ring light that can go on a tripod and get a second one so that is a bit less of a pain. Okay, not too divorced from that question is Scott's question, which is, what is your process for making a video? So at a high level, I start out by like putting all my ideas in Notion. I have this like calendar view with a database of all the different videos that I might want to do or plan for the future. I then script it out in Notion, and I do tend to script my videos quite a lot because I find that when I'm just spitballing at the camera, I really struggle to be pretty coherent or at least be succinct, and things can go on and on and on. This video has been an absolute nightmare to record because although I've written some notes about each question, I actually haven't scripted exactly what I want to say, so I think I've been really babbling. But anyway, once I've got the script, I will shoot the video. I'll often have my laptop like just behind so I can quickly see what I'm going to say and then say it to the camera. Because I'm shooting on my phone, I tend to create lots of short clips, and I'll like do multiple takes if I need to, if I mess up, which I think is a little bit different from having like a camera and just like switching it on and then talking, and if you make a mistake you'll just trim that bit out later. And what it means is that I actually do quite a bit of editing in a way while I'm shooting, because I will like do a clip 3 or 4 times to make sure I get it right, and then it's just a case of like trimming the silence rather than finding the right take. I couldn't actually do a really long recording if I wanted to on my phone because I just don't have enough storage. Anyway, the next step is that I AirPlay that to my laptop, and then I just edit with iMovie at the moment, which is the free thing that comes with all Mac OS devices. I think you could even do it on your phone if you really wanted to, but I like to do it on a laptop. And yeah, so that editing process is quite quick because I've got lots of the little clips. More generally, I tend to shoot my videos sort of just in time. Like in one day, I will script the video, shoot it, edit it, upload it, and publish it. I know that other booktubers are a little bit more organised and might have videos planned and shot and ready to go like 2, 3, 4 weeks in advance, and I would like to get a little bit more towards that, but I just haven't had the time to. Maybe that's another goal for the channel, become more organised. Next question is from Chronicle V, who asks, would you ever consider doing a reading vlog or a video project dedicated to a specific genre of books you don't usually read? I think potentially. The only thing holding me back would be that I have so many books that I want to read that reading ones I don't want to read would feel a little bit like a waste of time. But I also think it's important to be open-minded as a reader, so maybe I'd do that and find a new favourite. Let me know what genres you would be interested in me doing a reading vlog on, and I'll think about it. Debbie McDonnell asks, which other booktube channels do you enjoy? And the answer is so many. In fact, one of the difficult things about this whole experience of running a booktube channel is that you really get into the community, which is awesome, but it means you discover so many more channels all the time, and then you feel like you can't keep up with watching stuff. I think it's a bit rich to expect other people to watch your content if you're not gonna watch theirs. So that's something that I struggle with, and I do try and watch as much and as widely as I can. I guess my mainstays and the channels that I've been watching for a really long time are channels like Simon Savage's channel, Savage Reads. I also love what Willow does over at Books and Bow. Their reviews are amazing, probably one of the best reviewers on Booktube. Ilana Estelle, she does fantastic videos that deep dive into certain books, and I wish I watched more of them, but often I'm like, oh, I don't want to watch that video until I've read the book that she's talking about, because she really goes deep into it. There's then like the crew that I've got to meet over the course of women's prize stuff, I think mostly, which is stuff like Alice and the Giant Bookshelf, Gem of Books, Charlie Brooke Reads, Gunpowder Fiction and Plot, and Charlotte Malloy, and I'm sure I've probably missed some other people who have been sort of in the mix there, but it's really been great to watch their takes on some of the prizes that we've all been reading along with, and I've loved that. And then I will take this opportunity to shout out some booktubers that I think are sorely underappreciated. They're not all like tiny channels or anything, I just think they deserve to have even more subscribers and watchers than they currently do. And the 3 picks I'm going to share with you that you should go and subscribe to right now are Dog-Eared Musings, because Monica is an absolute delight and I love her little visual essays. They're so fun and creative and I just love them. Nathan's Nook, I think his vlogs are art. I think they're beautiful. He's great too, but he's also just so talented at like piecing together these wonderful little clips of his travels and how he spends his time. I just love it. And thirdly, Roro Reads, who's the most recent person out of those 3 that I've discovered, but his reviews are really concise, really neat. He gets to the nub of things. He explains why he likes books and why he doesn't like them. Yeah, I just really enjoy them. Go and follow them. Ned and Oh So Lame asks, do you watch Booktube yourself? If yes, do you often get inspired to read something based on other people's reviews. So, as you could tell from the last question, yes, I do watch Booktube, and I get influenced all the time. It never stops. It's terrible for my, not TBR because I don't have a TBR, but like my reading ambitions. Some recent examples would probably be Bob the Bookerer recommended Boller, which I have upstairs, I haven't read, and I've just realised that I should have mentioned Bob the Bookerer as a channel that I watch a lot. Books and Bow, Willow recommended The Space Between Worlds and just absolutely sold me on the premise, and I read that last year. And Jack Edwards, who was someone that I watched quite a lot actually, especially during lockdown, but his raving about The Bread the Devil Need made me want to read that, and I absolutely loved that book, so that was a great recommendation. Oh, and that's the last question in the Booktube section. We are at last at the final section, which is nothing but fun stuff, and we are kicking off with a question from Jennifer Loves Books, who also has a Booktube channel that I will link down below. She shares some great reviews. She is asking, what is your favourite cake? Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if this counts as a cake, but I'm going to say it is a cake. Sticky toffee pudding, which must be served with ice cold ice cream. I don't think you can get non-ice cold ice cream. That would be cream soup. But I absolutely love sticky toffee pudding. If I see it on a menu, I cannot resist, and it is absolutely terrible for my health. I've really not enjoyed that lots of restaurants have to publish calories next to things, because calories next to a sticky toffee pudding, they're big numbers, scary numbers, and it puts me off. Not enough not to order it, it just makes me feel bad about myself. Chronicle V asks, what is your go-to drink of choice? And I'm afraid to say it's not a Negroni, not even Spagliato with Prosecco in it. I love a G&T. That's probably like my main drink that I really enjoy. I do drink beer as well. I quite like pale ales and IPAs. I'm not as much of like a lager or ale drinker, but they're quite nice in certain circumstances. Or actually in the summer I really love a sour beer. I think it's really refreshing. I am also a pretty big fan of white wine. In particular, I love a German white wine. Riesling or Gewürztraminer are my favourites. Although I know commenters have previously expressed reservations about my liking of white wine and that I should like red instead. But hey, we all have our own tastes. Elizabeth Applebaum asks, what do I do for a living? Does it have anything to do with literature? And Sarah at Your True Shelf, another lovely YouTube channel, asks, what is my day job? Just because she's nosy. I am currently a product manager and I work for an energy tech company. My focus is like the website that a customer would use to manage their energy, which is an interesting time to be working in that because it is really tough, particularly in the UK. Prices are really, really high for energy. So customers are really justifiably not going to be happy with like a nicely presented bill when that bill is really high. So it's been quite a difficult job to do in recent years. But I am changing jobs. I'm staying with my same company, but I'm moving from product management, which is a role where you like do a lot of like decision making and trying to like figure things out between different parts of the business. I'm moving into a product design role where I'll be like making the designs of what the website should look like. And so I'm really excited to like hone a craft and make pretty things and get a bit more involved with the customers and what they need. But yeah, that whole like stress of the job and role change is why in maybe the last like month or two I've probably been a bit less regular with the videos on the channel, because I just haven't had as much time as I normally do, and I've been quite tired, quite stressed, but I'm looking forward to the fact that the end is in sight. Kieran at KD Books, another channel I will link below, asks, OnlyFans when? If the new job goes badly, Kieran, you will be the first to know. Maybe I could like seductively remove dust jackets from books. Would people pay for that? I don't think I'd pay for that. Yeah, I'd have to think about the business model there. Chronicle V has a couple of top 5 questions for me. So the first is top 5 musicians. I'm going to say my top 5 is Florence and the Machine. She is my spirit animal. I love her. Radiohead, Beyonce, Jamie T, who's probably the least well known on this list. He's like an English rapper / indie singer guy. He basically soundtracked my late teens and early 20s, and he's made a little bit of a comeback recently. Absolutely love him. He's great. And my 5th is Bon Iver. And then the other one is top 5 movies. And my top 5 movies are The Prestige, which was an early Christopher Nolan film, and I've only recently discovered that it's based on a book, so maybe I should read that book at some point. Mean Girls, absolute classic, rewatched it recently. Every other line is quotable and has changed the culture. Office Space is a great little film, really funny. Children of Men is a really wonderful film, another that's based on a book, and could have been a contender for the book to screen adaptation, because I think it's one of the rare films considered much better than the book. And then oddly, I think my fifth choice is The Beach, and I don't think of it as a favourite, but somehow I've watched that film more times than any other film ever. Every time it's on TV, I just end up getting like sucked in and watch the whole thing. So I do really enjoy it. A bonus pick would be Love Actually, because I watch that every Christmas. Absolutely love it. Sarah at Your True Shelf asks, which prize would you like to judge, and which fellow 3 judges would you pick? And 100%, I'd love to judge the Booker. Hands down, that would be my choice. I don't even think I can say the women's prize because only women can judge it, so it'd have to be the Booker. My fellow judges, though, I would pick Dua Lipa, because we know she loves books and she would bring some glamour to the whole affair. Richard Powers, because I reckon he reads some cool stuff, and I think he could bring a lot to the table. Octavia Bright, she is the host of the Literary Friction podcast. She is an absolute icon. She's actually released her debut book, which is her memoir of recovering from alcoholism earlier this year, and I saw a launch event for that, and it was just really enlightening. She's so interesting and has a lot to say, and really cool perspectives on a lot of things. So I think she'd bring a lot to the table there. And my fourth pick, because the Booker would have 5 judges, I'd be head judge, but then we'd need 4 other judges. I think I'd pick Sheena Patel, because she has just like such a fresh perspective on what the novel can do. Really loved I'm a Fan, and I want her to help us discover the next I'm a Fan. So those are my picks. Debbie McDonnell asks, would you ever write a book? And I would love to. I actually did NaNoWriMo when I was like 15. And if you're not aware of what that is, it's this challenge on the internet where lots of people get together and each try to write 50,000 words during the month of November. I did not reach that goal. I only wrote about 15,000 words. I think it was some timey-wimey novel about a girl who could stop time, but she didn't realise it. It wasn't very good. But yeah, I'd like to write a novel. I don't know that I'm capable of writing a novel. I've on and off sat down to try and write, and what comes out is often not very good, to be frank. And I know you only get better by doing stuff, but I do think you need a knack for it. There's something about writing, and particularly good and beautiful writing, that I'm not sure can be taught. I'm open to being convinced that that's not true, but yeah, I'd love to, maybe, who knows. Okay, Bex at Sniffing the Sheets asks, are you going to Hay Festival next year? Any tips for someone going for the first time? What was your Hay highlight? So, for those who don't know why this question's being asked, I did a vlog earlier this year where I went to Hay Festival, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure if I'm going next year, but I definitely liked it. I think it will just depend on the dates and what I'm doing around that time, because it is my birthday around that time, but also Matt's birthday. And so we'll just have to see. If there's someone really compelling on, I'd love to go and make it and see them. My advice for first-time Hay Festivalers would be not to book too much. We didn't book what felt like tons. I think we booked like 4 events over 3 days. And to be honest, when we were there, I felt kind of rushed. It's a festival that's got a very chilled atmosphere, and particularly if the weather's good, you want to save loads of time for like just chilling, sitting around, reading, browsing the bookshops. So what I would suggest is probably booking like one thing per day as like a tentpole event that you want to go to, or anything that you absolutely do not want to miss, and then play it by ear for the rest of it, because most of the events don't sell out, so you should be able to buy tickets quite late on. My highlight from this year's one, though, was probably meeting Douglas Stewart. I am not the world's biggest fan of Shuggie Bain. I wasn't as moved as some other readers were by it, but Douglas Stewart, he was just such a nice man. Queued up to get him to sign a copy of Young Mungo, had a nice chat. He was just so friendly, so personable. When he was interviewed by Dua Lipa, he was like super humble, very like happy to be there. Yeah, he just seems like an all-round great guy. So that was very nice. Andre asks, husband collab vid when? Maybe this will come after the OnlyFans. Just kidding. I have actually asked Matt if he wanted to appear in a video at any point, but I think we're just not ready to take that step. And it especially is a little bit difficult when I script videos, because you can't really script a two-person interaction. Well, I guess you can. That's the basis for like all television drama. But I think on YouTube you can't really do that. And so I'd need to be more confident in my flow, and he'd need to be willing to be on camera, which as of right now he's not. And our final question, we've come to the last one, is from Joanna Marquez. And she asks, if you could learn any language to be able to read the books in that language with no translation, which one would you learn? I think the obvious answer for me is Spanish. Like, you just get access to authors from so many different countries and cultures who are all Spanish speaking, that I think it would just be an absolute treasure trove of literature to explore. I'd be able to read all of the Charco Press publications without needing Charco's translations. That would be really, really cool. I think Russian would probably be another interesting choice, because there are so many like Russian greats in literature, but I've never been that excited about Russian stuff. Maybe that will change after I finally read Anna Karenina, so I'll keep you posted on that. And then another way to look at it, I think, is which languages are most changed by the act of translation, and so which ones could you potentially get a lot more meaning from by reading them in the original language. And I think given Spanish and French and German all feed into English in one way or another, that leap is much less than a language like Japanese or Korean. I think there's some super interesting literature that comes from that part of the world, and so I'd love to be able to read those in the original language and see just how different they are, and if there's like different meanings or feelings or ways that they're constructed that come through. I actually feel very tired after expending the brain power to think about and answer all of those questions, but I really appreciate you all for asking them. It was fun to think about the answers and then to share them with you, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I do just want to take this opportunity to say that I am so grateful for everyone out there who has been watching and supporting my channel. Thank you for coming along for the ride. I've had a really good time over the last 10 months with this channel, and it's been so exciting to see it grow and to interact with you all in like the comments and to see that people are enjoying what's being put out. I did not for a second think that less than a year in I'd be at this size. I'm not like a huge Booktube channel by any means, but it's certainly a lot bigger than back when I got my first ever subscriber. So I am just eternally grateful, super excited, hope that everyone continues to enjoy what's being made, and it would not be possible without you. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If this is your first time on this channel, and I think it would be kind of weird if your first ever experience of this channel was just my Q&A, but if it is, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and you'll get a new video from me more or less every week that will land in your subscriptions feed. But until next time, toodles.